the Board of Finance meeting. Thank you all. Right. All right, so can we have a roll call, please?
Yes.
These guys have to redial in.
Judy Neville, Tom Schulte,
Here.
Amy Carroll.
Here.
Rod Lavieri,
Here.
Michael Chen, did he?
Yep, I'm
Huh?
still here.
Oh, I couldn't see you. I'm sorry. Okay. Chris Labrie, Victor Alvarez is absent. Maria Weingarten.
Here.
Bob Hamel.
Here.
Palm Dobbin,
Here.
James Yao is here. So again, we need to seat Colm for Victor Alvarez.
So
So moved.
motion,
So moved.
Amy, second,
Second.
Tom, all in favor? Opposed? None, thank you. Okay. Okay. Our second item on the agenda, we need an election of a chairman and a secretary. You may need to find.
We did that. Are we doing that
We
tonight?
have to, yeah, tonight's the night.
Oh. that's fun here.
All right, so I would open it up. I guess we'll open it up. We'll start with the chair. Are there any nominations?
I do this.
You do this. That's right. Kevin Moynihan, that's what it says right there.
Says right here.
There you
It's
go.
fine.
Okay. Do I have nominations for chair?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Todd.
Is there a second?
So moved.
Judy? Any further nominations for chair? Hearing none? Hearing none?
Have at it.
I call for a vote on Todd as chairman for another term, but raise your hands or
Yeah, you have to do it. Everyone has to read.
I,
if it's,
I'm a non-voter, so I can't vote.
yeah, the regular, actually, who is seated for this meeting?
Coleman is seated.
Colm.
The regular members,
Bob is an alternate
I'm
tonight.
voting yes.
Coleman and Michael are there and they're online.
right, okay. So that's unanimous?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
let's do it. Sure.
And I would take nominations for secretary.
Nominate Judy.
I second that.
Any further nominations for
Not a triple.
secretary?
Try. I don't know. Do we have?
Hearing none, all in favor of Judy for secretary for another term?
That was a quick job.
I,
Aye.
Is that's unanimous as well?
Opposed?
is,
Congratulations, Judy. Thank you.
congratulations.
Seriously, thank you, Todd and Judy, for your service. You're doing an amazing job.
Forever.
All right.
Why
Okay.
rock the boat? It's working, you know?
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate the support and honestly, all the help throughout the year. This board's unbelievable and very thoughtful and very helpful. Okay, let's motion to approve the minutes from December 13.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Chris, second. All in favor, motion?
Right.
Opposed?
And
None?
Tucker, do we have to approve the revised November ones that were attached?
No, they were as. revised.
That was from the December meeting we had to, no,
There was a-
we approved them in the meeting.
Okay, with the oh, so that was just for information.
That was just.
Got it.
info,
Yes,
yeah.
that was
Yeah.
FYI.
Very good. Okay,
Okay, first selectman update.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all.
Yep.
I'm suffering from a little bit of vacationitis. I just got back from a week's vacation, so I'm gonna ask Tiger for a little bit of help if I miss anything. I just have a few items. COVID to start with, first of all, New Canaan is not seeing the spike that Connecticut is seeing around us. Again, because of our high vaccination and booster rates. The Connecticut Department of Public Health says they're not seeing the new variant from China. Apparently the variant is an Omicron variant, so anyway, we were very fortunate not to be seeing the wave that Connecticut is seeing. And our schools in particular have very few reported cases. Testing, as I always remind people, and vaccinations and boosters are available weekly at Irwin House, and free flu shots are also available. Capital projects, Tiger, this is where I need your help. Waveney House, the bathrooms are underway on the second floor. The Playhouse project has moved along nicely. We've ordered chairs and are beginning to order some other hard to long pipeline items. but they're engaged in demolition. If you've been out on Elm Street to see
I was
that.
gonna go. I've been waiting for you. That worked. Yeah.
Hey, Michael, you need to go on mute.
So the Playhouse project is moving along nicely. 220 Elm, the bids came back and we have two bidders that we you described as not what's the word you use? Not qualified yet, or
No, well, we're still reviewing the bids at present, balancing the bids out.
they came in somewhat higher than we expected. I asked that the Board of Ed be here tonight. Did it?
Dr. Lutz, he said he was going to join. He's here.
Brian, do you want to make any comments about your proposed renovations at 220 Elm?
Or do you want to wait for the item?
Whatever you prefer is fine with me. It is on the agenda a little bit later.
Have it on number 8.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
Brian, if it's okay for you to wait a little bit, if you've got to run, we could talk about it. We could jump now if you've got a few minutes.
Whatever you prefer, Todd. I'm at your disposal, whatever works best.
Let's get, when we get there, we'll get to it.
Okay,
Okay.
and the PD renovation is going along well. Amy can address that further. The owner's rep is installed, the subcontractors have been selected, and there should be some better definition in 3 or 4 weeks about the cost of the project. And the expected departure from the existing building is now for October, perhaps, unless they go over to the
Yeah.
spring.
I would say it's still evolving, but people are getting much closer to things. And again, with pricing, you have to nail it down a little bit more, which your design is to get
Right.
to form your bid.
And other than that, I would say, we started our budget process this morning with the Board of Selectmen. The numbers are really moving around still. Although we've nailed down a lot of things. The numbers are higher than I expected, but there's much work to be done. So
Okay.
that's all I would say. Thank you.
On that note, I did ask that this be published and printed for everybody. It's our Board of Finance schedule for February. You could see it. And I think the only question was what room we're going to be in on the 28th. But we'll figure that out. We may not be here. We may be in the JV room.
Can I ask you a question on one of the capital projects with the renovation of the Playhouse? Because I know we're doing it as we go along. Is it coming in kind of where we thought it would be pricing wise? Because it's a time, we didn't bid it all out. We're doing time and materials, right?
Tiger, can you address that?
How are we doing on that? And I know it's tough these days with stuff, but the supply chain's going all over the place.
Right, we are only at the exterior came in lower than we had originally estimated. The exterior renovation, so that was a good thing. That was Alden Bailey won that bid. The interior, we're only starting the selective demolition on the inside. We're still working through the design phase, so we're actually doing some selective demo and some abatement inside to allow the architect and engineer to see the space a little bit greater. So we don't have an overall number yet. So I can't speak to that, but that selective demo number came in pretty much where we thought it would be. So that gives you a short answer on a long question. Sorry.
That's okay. We have an upward number we think, we're shooting for, right? And we have it's not a blank slate. Obviously, we have kind of a.
Well, yeah, we only have a certain allotment of funds. So
Okay.
yes, and we had a budget to attain that, what we thought where we would be. We are on course, but we're early in the process. I can't speak any further on it to say, oh yeah, we'll make that number. It's way too early.
We also negotiated at the last minute a provision that requires them to contribute if it goes over budget by a certain amount. So
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
And they have raised
they've raised their money. They're
2.3 million.
right, exactly. So
Amazing.
No, they've done a great job.
Wait,
It's
wait,
supposed to be the
do we,
fall.
what's
The
a
fall, right?
goal for opening?
Yeah, the same as.
October 1.
Yeah.
I asked, first movie, October 1.
I hope we make it.
That's what
Yes.
that's what I heard from Nick. That's what their estimate was.
Well,
I'm
Okay.
not saying that's the official.
no, I hope we make October 1.
Okay.
I think it's doable.
Anything else?
And with the bathrooms and Waveney, what's the time frame for that? How long is that? I mean, I know it's a big job, but what's the time frame for that?
The bathrooms themselves are about 4 months, 4
Okay.
to 6 months, but the elevator is a lot longer of a lead time associated with it. we're trying to do the bathrooms now, move the staff and do the bathrooms now during the down periods. For the house for weddings and prepare the upstairs for that. But the elevator is still is a long lead.
Right. Thanks.
That's it. Okay, next item. Dump truck purchase. This is an approval. Tiger, you want to walk through these next three? Actually,
Sure.
next two. Let's take care of the next two because they're
Yeah,
sort of
together.
separate.
Mhm. So the first was, we had $220,000 in our fiscal 23 budget. Our number for the purchase of the vehicle, the truck, the replacement came in at 233, 493, 31. Subsequent to that, we have been able to trade in one of the vehicles on GovDeal, the replacement vehicle on GovDeals to help offset some of the costs. But we were looking at bridging that gap between the sale price and the budget cost of the budget available at 220. So we were looking for a transfer of funds. We're planning on an interim basis. We taking it out of our operating account, our mobile repairs. That's the account we use to repair all of our fleet vehicles. And then with the additional monies being able to then backfeed that account and make that whole for the rest of the remainder of the year. The thought being is that we needed to transfer funds out of our 22 account into our 23 account to make up the difference between the two. We had $220,000 in that account. That purchase, Board of Selectmen approved this morning at $193,000. So there's some money in there. So we were able to buy two large trucks to our specifications with the allotted money. We just don't have them in the right pockets, if you will. And did I say that right?
Yeah, why don't you come up? The right buckets you're talking about.
While Ann's coming up to the mic, if anybody's listening at home on channel 79, we are aware that their system has crashed. We're aware that there's a box in the middle of the screen. I know you can still hear it, but if anybody would like to also be able to see the meeting clearly, you can log on to the Zoom, but we are aware and we're working to fix it.
You missed the fireworks.
So Tiger, are these trucks that you're buying, are they delivered at a future date, or these are the
Yes.
trucks? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the truck we bought this morning is actually a 2024 Ford. It won't come, it's a year out. So we'll be utilizing the existing vehicle until that time and then put it on GovDeals for an auction and sell it off at that time. But yeah, it's a pre-buy of about a year at present.
Which is why you have to backfill the maintenance account because you're going to be using the old truck.
Correct.
Got it.
So you want to explain just
So-
the puts and takes? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, Tiger, and I'm sorry if I misunderstood on
That's
it.
okay.
I thought we were using operating funds to cover the difference,
That's correct.
not
I'm just-
doing transfer.
Right. Yes, we are at present. I was just worried at the end of the year, if I'm going to be 13.5 light on that account.
No, we do have in the special revenue account, we have funds in there that you can do it. I just wanted to make sure I was
Okay.
under. There
All right,
is a
that's fine.
difference between the 22 and 23 bonded because the authorization's not there. So you can't use those funds. So
Okay, my bad.
you're gonna, no, and that was me, sorry for not clarifying. So the 13,000 I have in a special revenue fund that will reimburse your fleet account that you're using for operating to make sure you get the right price.
How does that happen? What's actually the
So
mechanism?
so the mechanism is where it's actually the approval and what's been requested is a budget transfer, operating transfer from a special revenue account into the general fund.
Okay, the money's there. It's not.
Still a transfer.
It's a transfer,
Okay,
but
right.
it's not a transfer between the bonded, it's a transfer between special revenue fund to the general fund.
Okay,
And how much do we have in special revenue fund?
a lot.
We have a bit, about $1 million.
Yeah, I thought.
Yeah,
we
it's all
had quite a
categorized by
bit, yeah.
different departments and different levels, who has what money in
Okay,
that.
All right.
okay, good. All right. So we're approving that transfer from that account.
Yes.
Okay.
please.
All right, so
So then his maintenance account won't be short
It will not, at the end of the day, it will not.
at the end of the day, right? Got it. Okay.
Any other questions on that? Or can I have a
Yeah,
motion?
I'm sorry, so the FY 22 truck came in cheaper?
We changed, we went with a slightly smaller truck because of the route that it's on. So we changed the specification slightly, went with a better fit truck for that route. And therefore got a reduced price. It wasn't the fact that, we paid for the exact same truck, 220 and 193. No, they were different trucks,
Okay.
different
So,
manufacturers. One was a Freightliner, one's a Ford.
all right, so the 2022, there's going to be showing us savings.
Right, so at some point, I'm
2022.
gonna come in front of the board to say, I want to,
Move that.
well, close down the project. So then
Right.
it's closed, so then we can either move the
Got
money
it.
somewhere else and.
Okay, thank you.
reassign it.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, we can have a motion. What? Do you have a
You
question?
want a motion separately, right? Yeah.
We'll do the
that's what I
motion
thought.
separately for sure. So
I'll move.
motion
Yeah.
for item 5, transfer.
I'll move.
Judy, second.
Second.
Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None? Okay,
All right.
so moved.
Thank you.
And you want to keep it going with the
I will.
utilities? Yeah.
Yes, this next one is a little more painful. Typically, we pre-buy our fuel, our heating oil, our diesel, and our gas. Given the state of the world at the time of our budget process last year, we were advised not to buy an advance or a future. We usually buy our heating oil off cycle in January for the entire year, for the next year, not the year that we're in, but the following year. And gas we buy in the summer. So we tend to hit the market very, very well. Last year on my presentation to you, I showed you exactly where we were, and over time, over the past 10 years, we've hit that market very, very well, and actually showed a savings off of what would be considered the average rack price. But this year we were told, let's not, because one, some of the futures weren't being offered, and two, they were quite expensive at the time. So we were advised to wait. The problem that we have is that what we budgeted for numbers for all three of those products was lower than what we were able to purchase for the past 6 months, 5-6 months. So the accounts are running low, very low for the year, and we need an allocation of monies to bring them back whole for the rest of the year. We've estimated out what we feel that cost would be as on a per gallon basis for both for all heating oil, gas, and diesel. And with the remaining volume that we need to buy to get us through to the end of the year, the total comes to $297,028.50 was is the overall request. I'm hoping you have a copy of my December 12th memo. So this would bring us whole, and then at that point in time, we'd look to, and we are currently looking to get back on a cycle of pre-buying. So therefore, we won't have this issue. We pre-bought our electricity. Our electricity doesn't expire until December 31st of 2023. So we're good for the remainder of this budget year and for half of next year. And we are currently talking to our consultant about packaging that, the remaining portion of what we have now, with future years to see if we can garner a savings. In speaking to the our consultants still right now about fuel oils, they're still a little hesitant to give us a number, but we want to get back to the point where we're going to pre-buy. We're just hoping that the economy in the world settles a little bit. The moment that it settles and we're able to see a favorable futures price, we'll get back on that cycle. But this year, unfortunately, we were unable to do so.
Make sure I understand. It's two things here. One, you're not running out of money because things are much more expensive than they were projected. Running out of money because we only budgeted a smaller amount for now with this conversation in mind.
No.
Well, we did increase the numbers of what we thought the price would be, but nowhere near to the extent of what they are.
Okay. Then
We had budgeted heating oil at $275. I got it off the rack yesterday at $459.
okay. So duly noted. Okay. The other question then is that you're asking for this amount of money for the rest of fiscal year, not for January or February.
to
Okay.
June.
Well, I'm asking because it'll be a question of how do we want to fund it? Do we want to fund it on as needed? Do we want to lump sum? I mean, that'd be,
I think as needed is best because we don't
Yeah.
know where it's gonna go, because if it fortunately might drop, then we know it's less,
But
so.
we're gonna buy rack rates for the next 5 months.
so we're to get that part. So we're going to approve the amount to be transferred.
What
but
does rack rate mean for those of us not in this business?
They didn't negotiate a future.
We don't have.
Right.
any-
Look-
If you called someone, they
Yeah,
would
that's
tell you
fine.
what it is on that day.
I just wanted to get that clear. So we're just buying it as we need it and what the price is, right?
Well, diesel was up at $6 and $7. It's come down a
About
bit,
5,
but
yeah.
gasoline has come down a bit. So, but again, it's not where.
We've done a really good job of this in the past. This is just a
It's a tough year.
really unusual circumstance
But,
this
but
last year.
putting aside the price and even perhaps whatever it is our consultant is saying, is it the fact, Tiger, that the future contracts that we would normally seek, have those become available?
No, they're
They're
not
not
even,
what we want to pull the trigger on?
no, they're not even, at present, they're still trying to package deals together, multi-town deals, but we're not seeing anything that we would have wanted to jump on.
Okay, and so that, again, this solves the anticipated problem for the balance of the fiscal year.
Right, and then we are trying to get through,
Just,
as we move through the budget cycle, we are trying to see whether or not we can then get a better rate for fiscal 24 and beyond, so that we don't have this issue, and then B, when you're looking at the budgets, it's you're looking at a cleaner version whereby you wouldn't be looking at any disruption or additional costs, down the line, because we weren't able to secure a future.
and this number was arrived at as a projected shortfall between what we budgeted and what you anticipate it's going to take to get through the 5 months.
That's correct.
And this will come from the
Special revenue.
special revenue fund.
Yep.
So this isn't an overage per se. It is, but we have money to
We have
support
money
it
in
with
there that
cash to
would cover about
support that.
300,000 that would cover it.
Okay.
And I would recommend doing it as needed.
Right.
So we'll approve one transfer or we approve
Up to
the
300, up to the dollar.
move it up to 300,000, then we'll
300,000,
approve the
And
transfers.
then you'll see the transfers coming
I like
through
that
as we
approach.
need it. each
You okay with
month.
that, Tiger?
That's what we would prefer. I'd rather not, we feel that this is a one-off and it should go just towards fuel. And, yes, I prefer it this way.
What's the balance in the fuel account right now?
I don't have it offhand.
The problem is that they're spread across everyone's
Department.
different department, right? So
How-
police is buying, we buy for everyone, and then it gets purchased out, we buy it, and then we dole out the cost to each department. So I'd have to look at every department.
If you're able to come up with an estimate of 297,000, what, on that same basis, how much money do you have currently in the account?
Oh, well, if you look in each, the overall accounts for, well, the revised budget for gasoline is 353. The original account was 242, and I need 110. And I'm about halfway through the year on a $353,000 purchase. So I'm a little bit far along on that. So some are doing worse than others. Diesel, we're doing a little bit better than gas, and heating oil, we're struggling a little bit. But I'd have to look at every individual account. I don't have that in front of me as far as where each account sits in each department. I have an overall view of where we were for what we budgeted their gallonage for and where they are.
Okay.
Okay, so any other questions on this 297 transfer from the special revenue fund?
Are we turning the heat down? Just saying.
No,
No,
but on the other hand, natural gas came down,
Right.
came back down, which is good.
Stuff you-
And most of our public buildings now are on natural gas, including 4 of the 5 schools. So
Mhm.
that's good.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
And Tiger, I'm assuming a year ago, you couldn't even lock these in if you wanted to, but had we, the number would have been much higher. I mean,
Correct.
it was
We-
still
we
the
were-
right move. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, I don't like to go in with an unknown, but one, the futures weren't necessarily available, and 2, the costs were astronomical.
Right.
What they were asking. And, to Kevin's point, we saw a spike and now we're seeing a return. And that was our hope, was we were going to see a spike when we saw it, and then we would see a return to normalcy, and we would start to then gather back, whereby if we had bought the future, we'd be buying through that insanity.
Yep.
Can I just be clear? When you say as needed, this amount does not include the 5-month rack rate that we are.
No, we're gonna go out and buy
Firmly.
it, monthly.
That's
We
in
don't have we
addition.
don't have a contractor. It's gonna deliver it at a fixed price. So we're gonna go out, whatever it is,
I
each
get
month,
that,
yeah.
but
That's assuming current prices. Is that assuming current
What's that?
prices?
current prices.
Oh.
Yes, yeah, we added a little bit, we're pretty close on, looking at where we were, we estimated heating oil at 450. We estimated our diesel at 467, and we add, and then we added monies to our heating oil as well, our gasoline as well. So I think we're in a
Do
good
the best you
spot.
can.
Yeah,
This is a great estimate.
absolutely, yeah.
We may talk again in June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or May if there's an issue, but
Deal then, yeah.
I
Just
think
clear.
you gotta make an assumption and pick something.
So far, the winter's being good to us.
That's been very good to us, including plowing and salt, I would hope.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? James,
No.
you good? Everybody good? All right, motion to approve this transfer, 297,000.
Motion.
Maria? Second, Amy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? And it's 297,028.50 to be.
you.
To misstate
Done
the,
300.
thanks, Tiger. Okay, back to you then, Tiger and Brian.
Okay.
Common charges for Elm and then
Common
the,
charges, well, okay, so yeah, the common charges themselves, so this is more on, while it's for, it's for the current ownership right now of Elm Street. When we purchased, we purchased the facility, the parcel, we knew there would be common charges. We hadn't figured out exactly what they were, and we did not, unfortunately, include them in our buildings budget for fiscal 23. We've been carrying that number, $11,500 a month for the past 6 months out of our outside services contract line. And we didn't budget for it. So we're looking to actually add that in and then pay the rest of the remaining 6 months of time. At that point in time, come the next fiscal year, I believe the BOE will then assume helping us with that. We do have monies in our budget for it, and I believe that there's an agreement somewhere where we'll work through that as far as they'll be reimbursing us back. But we have monies in our fiscal 24 to cover the this managerial cost, this monthly managerial cost for 220 Elm. We just didn't have it in our budget for this fiscal year. So the 11,495 for 12 months came out to 137,940, and I said it was $138,000.
Okay.
That'll help bring our outside services contract line whole for for fiscal 23.
What is that paying for? I mean, what is,
That's the common charges for the condo itself.
Heating,
So
and
it pays-
cooling, electricity, even though it's not being used right now, the first floor, the outside snow plowing and landscaping and stuff.
okay, but in the analysis we did, the
Gridiron rent paid through July,
Mhm.
and we had a slippage because we actually expected the Board of Ed to be moving in earlier, and so that got pushed back. So we just really didn't budget for it in terms.
But no, my question is, and so when we did the whole analysis of purchasing this building, this was just this year. We do have the common charge built, when we did the analysis, the common charge were built in to the projection for, if it made sense to buy this building.
It was in the projections. We
Yeah.
didn't budget for it. That's the problem.
Okay.
With the transition with Linda and stuff, it had been in the projections, but we didn't go through.
Yeah, but our analysis assumed that
Yeah,
cost. Okay,
exactly,
all
yeah.
right, that's what I want to make sure.
And are we going to budget for this?
Well, again,
Next year?
next year's cost will be on the superintendent because they'll be
They'll be in.
occupying the building and paying
It is budgeted.
the operating expenses of the building, just like the other tenant.
Just a different
And
line
when
item.
are they expected to move in time for fiscal year?
Well, they're going to move in July.
If
God willing.
if we hit our timetable and our marks, yes.
Okay, so you, at
So
the
it's
beginning
the
of fiscal
fiscal
year,
year,
you would be
yeah.
moving in.
Can you remind
And
me?
they would pick up
Sorry.
100% of the common charges?
Well, that's what they're paying over. You're paying your utilities at 39 Locust, right?
We do pay, right, utilities, taxes.
Yeah, and the land, so that's part of, we're gonna have a memorandum of understanding with the superintendent about the operating, carrying the cost of the debt. Plus the monthly maintenance. And what's the third element? The
Station we have to figure out.
the amortization of the excess, which we're gonna talk about in the next item.
I think we have a
Have you pay that? just-
conversation ahead of us. Yes.
So essentially, it'll be coming out of
Right.
Tiger's budget and into the Board of Ed budget, but we're still paying.
Exactly. Well,
Taxpayers.
Right. And just to be clear, to Amy's
This
point,
pocket and that pocket.
this is heating, utilities, landscaping
Right.
and insurance.
everything.
Well, it's not taxes, right? In other words, the part that we own isn't.
We
taxed,
don't pay taxes,
So
whereas,
there would be no taxes.
whereas the
But
landlords
that's-
at 39 actually pay taxes.
Correct, right.
Right.
But I mean, so the 10, 11,000 a month is for the heat, even though it's not being occupied, right?
Right, because we own it.
Can I ask a question? Are the other condominium owners current on their payments?
Yes. Yes.
Even though they vacated, they're still continuing to pay?
Oh, yeah, they have one tenant still occupying it. They have a new tenant coming in and they have they have 3 separate condo units and they have one space that is unaccounted for still. But he's a real estate guy and he understands sometimes there's transition loss with the purchase of a building and tenants moving out.
Thank you.
Where do we book the revenue from that, from the tenants?
It was going into the real estate fund.
And what will it, when
Now
the
this
Board
time
of
it's
Ed?
going to be a line on the operating budget as revenue coming in from the Board of Ed. And then an expenditure on top of it for actually 2 places. It's going to be the monthly charge. And then there's the debt service because part of that whole payment from the Board of Ed is paying back the debt service for the building.
So that's a new line item in the budget coming up?
Yes, you'll see in Tiger's budget coming up,
All
you'll see
right.
that expense of 147, Tiger, I think. I forget what it was.
The
number.
town buildings budget.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, just.
And then after 20 years, the debt goes away and it'll just be monthly maintenance so the superintendent's cost will go down in the long run. So.
I should know this and I apologize. What was Dr. Leslie, what was the holdup in transferring over? Was it design of the building or, I mean, I just can't remember. But we would have still had the expense at Locust anyways, right?
Well, the Board of Ed would have preferred not to move mid-year because they'd like to keep the students with the office space. So it made more sense to push it. Obviously, it costs us a little bit in terms of opportunity costs, but we also then decided to keep the building for the police. So
Yeah, right.
it's all.
So it was just working better for your whole educational process.
It does. Yeah, we wouldn't, because there are 2 student programs that are going there. We wouldn't be moving them mid-year.
Oh.
And so, just the process takes time to get the drawings together, get out to bid, do everything that has to be done. Which
Right.
is the second item that we're here for.
And I'm sorry, you may have said this. It's the transfer from what to what?
So we're actually going to take it from interest on bonds because we're not bonding until March. That first payment is 6 months ahead, so it's July. So the budgeted amount that we thought we were going to bond in fiscal year 23, that interest is not going to be.
So
due.
from budgeted, it was an interest expense that we budgeted but unspent.
Right.
I got you.
So
Okay,
we'll take it from that account and transfer it up to Tiger's line.
okay.
Do we budget, what interest rate did we budget that at?
You know what? I don't know.
Because,
offhand.
Well,
It was very
oof,
small because
low, that would have been the fall of
That would have been.
21.
Is it interest principal as well?
just interest because if we had bonded in.
Okay, right,
September,
okay.
Just an interest.
Right.
rate.
It's probably 200 basis points, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have it offhand. sorry.
You don't?
No.
I can't believe it.
What was the full amount that was budgeted but unspent?
240,000.
240. Okay. You got money coming out everywhere today, don't you?
You're pushing it back somewhere else. Deb. It's not coming out.
The revenues are special.
Bond premium we could use.
240.
That's what made
Just interest.
That's amazing.
Because it was gonna be a large.
That's a keep the mill rate down conversation.
Oh, I see. So it's not just this side.
Not just this project.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I.
March now, and then the first payment will be
All right,
in
all right.
July of
I
next
understand.
fiscal year.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on that one?
All right, do we, yeah.
Okay, I think we've exhausted
Good.
that one. So approval, please. Motion to approve this transfer of $138,000.
So moved.
Tom, second,
Second,
Chris, all in favor?
aye.
Michael Colm, yes, okay, approved.
Yes.
Anybody against? Okay, so moved.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, and
Bill, this is the bonding for, 220 Elm, so I didn't know Tiger or, the superintendent.
So Bill is out sick, so Tiger's covering for Bill on the this is the expense of the renovations, which is in addition to the amount we had already budgeted for renovations. The bids, well, the project came in a bit higher than perhaps we expected. But we're doing a lot of renovation, a lot of demolition and yes, Brian, do you want to address the overall project in terms of what you're doing?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Kevin. Thank you. And first, again, Kevin, let me say thank you, to Bill, to Tiger for your fortitude and help with all of this. So what we are looking to do is completely move out of the 12,000 or so square feet over at 39 Locust to move into the first floor there of 220. And by completely moving out of 39, that means the about 28 or so folks working at the central office building. And then our launch program, which is about 10 folks or so, students and adults, and then another 20, give or take, with our alternative program. So really, we're talking about moving up around 50 people into the space. So the design had to be very precise and take advantage of every square foot that's available in there. So what we're looking to do essentially is split that building in half, where one half will be the central office building and all the spaces that are there. And the other half will be in the front part of the building is the launch program, which, as you'll recall, is for students 18 to 22 in our special education program. In the middle will be a kitchen area for them. I'll get back to that in a moment. And then on the back side of the building, facing the railroad, is going to be the alternative program, which, as you'll recall, flexes anywhere from 12 to 18 or so students based on the time of year and where we are with things. The kitchen area will be shared between the two student spaces, which is important for the launch program because that is a life skills program where they need to learn those things, the life skills that it takes to live semi-independently. We also have washer, dryer, those other life skills types of areas for those students to learn what they need to learn. It'll also be advantageous for our alternative students because part of the alternative experience is building a camaraderie and a program there. So them sharing that space, we think, will work very well. And in the plans themselves, there are doors that separate both sides. On the central office side of the building, which is when you walk in, would be to the left of the building, the old Bankwell space, some of the old Bankwell space. We are going to be repurposing the furniture that we can. So we're looking at the pods that we have for our folks in the business office and in the finance office and over in HR, and doing what we can to maximize the available space that's there. We're going down to one conference room, but we'll figure out a way to make that work. And we are setting it up in such a way that we'll be able to hold meetings or share spaces, whatever, in our offices as we go and need be. We're also anticipating using some of the launch program space when school's not in session. So they have a conference room there that we can use if we need things like that in the evening. So the plan, we worked through probably 10 or 12 different designs to get to a place where, we feel it's going to work well. We've done things like figure out a way to repurpose a filing system that's there currently to maximize filing space and things like that. So we're excited to get things underway. But as you know, prices on anything have only gone in one direction over the last 6-8 months. And so, we're here to try to get going on that next step. And Bill has been a big help with all of it. He's been meeting regularly with us and with the architect and with the builders and managing and coordinating the bid. So, we're excited to get things started. And Tiger, if I missed anything, please. We have gone to P&Z and gotten their approval for the student side, for the student section over there. We have to do a little something with the parking and the flow of traffic for that, but we're figuring that out now. So the approvals are are lined up or in place, and we're ready to go.
What had we assumed the renovation costs would be?
We had budgeted 750.
750.
That-
So,
So this is on top of that.
okay.
Wow.
Still for
This
the
is on
long,
top of it?
So it's
Not-
2 million.
Wow.
so
Did we do an authorization on the 750 or did
it
we
was
do a
part of the
trans-
bonding of the purchase.
The original?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And we spent some of that, a little bit of that already.
Does the current space you have for the launch students have, do you have the life skill kitchens and laundry and
We have
stuff?
some, we have the laundry. It's very tight though. We had some space that we had acquired. We were going to put the kitchen, but then we put that on hold when this was in the works. And so we don't.
Okay. So
Were Tiger, I heard that there were two different bids that you're still analyzing. Is that right?
There were 5 bids.
Or
5 bids were received. The 2 lowest we are looking through at present.
And
Uh,
are the drivers of the overage in each of those similar between the two? And the things that are causing this excess, are they?
Some of the bids are much
I-
higher, so.
I
this-
can, yeah, I mean, I can tell you that the bids range from 1.49 million all the way up to 2.1. So over the 5, so, you know, it's a 149 and a 1588. And so given the fact there's 2 and given the fact that we're asking for additional monies, we're trying to see if there's any play between the 2 on a value engineering basis. So we're just analyzing their bids now, and then we have to decide whether to go back to the low bid or go back to the 2 lowest bidders and talk to them. But the numbers that you have in front of you would necessarily be the worst case scenario, taking the numbers as is, no value engineering, no savings in costs. This number, this appropriation is what's needed to bring the project forward. And we necessarily are at a stage where we don't like to talk to the bidders yet, not having the appropriation, not having the monies available, right? Because if you don't have the money, they don't want to talk either. So we're kind of at an impasse. We can't go further. We couldn't go further to an approval with the Board of Selectmen because we definitely don't have the money. And then we feel that we should have the monies in hand so we can then go back and talk to the bidders themselves, knowing that we have a viable project to move forward with.
So is this an expense, this additional bonding expense or the cost of this? This is a Board of Finance cost or not a Board of Ed cost, or is just a town budget debt expense? And it's just, and what I'm curious is that, this project was put forward and that there's a present value analysis and it was way better for the town. Have we looked just kind of what, or I'd like to see what, we're obviously going to have to fit this out, which was this Class A building and everything was supposed to be great. And it wasn't supposed to cost us that much money to get it in. And now it's a lot more. So in terms of, we were put forth a present value analysis saying this is a slam dunk for us to do it. I would like to see that analysis revised with not the 750, but the 2 million.
Part of it is.
Well, probably the 1.3 because the 750 was in. the
Thank
original.
you. 1-3 more. I'd just be curious.
Bankers' offices were kind of like large, right?
I
The
understand.
superintendent
but-
is condensing it into more people.
I get it, but
Yeah.
when this was talked about, it was talked about this terrific space, Class A space, there's a lot of flexibility. Obviously, for educational uses, it's more complicated.
Right.
And I don't think that was fully baked into the analysis. And I'm curious, we're here, this is what we have, but I would like to see, if this still.
But
is a
honestly, at the
smart
time,
thing.
we talked about with George Zagorensky actually about, maybe on the office side, they could move in and kind of use it as it was. There was more of our expectation that they would use it as it was. In order to accommodate their needs, they need to crunch it down a bit. They're taking a whole conference room and making 3 offices, et cetera. So it's when the superintendent renewed the lease on 39 Locust, they did renovation. The landlord did renovations for $1 million and they paid that. Board of Ed paid that off over 10 years. So it's the same thing. These are tenant improvements that are being made.
And these are going to be paid off.
The Board of Ed, the Board of Ed currently is paying, I think, $440,000 rent.
Wasn't it 330 then plus?
Plus the additional amounts for the other space.
Yeah.
there was added.
I just would, I would like to see it with, if it's possible.
Sure.
Because I think it's just a little different than we expected. And I do understand that costs went up. But however,
Yeah.
it was put forth like this is rock and space
think
and
the
it's gonna
plan
work
changed.
great.
This isn't a cost
Sounds like
increase.
it,
This is a
yeah.
new plan.
This is a new plan.
Yeah.
Well,
sounds like
okay,
it.
but it was not
Revised
put
plan.
forward to us
A
that way.
revised plan.
No, I agree with you.
We agree,
Just-
right?
yeah, yeah.
It has changed from what we thought we
Yes.
had
Yeah,
agreed
I
to.
mean, when we first talked about this, the build out of 750 sounded like a very reasonable number and quite a bargain. And now the reality is it's $2.1 million, which is probably much more realistic. And I understand what drives it. You have 50 people as opposed to 10 bankers, and it's a different, and you have to do all this, but it's an order of magnitude error of some importance. So I think Amy's request makes a lot of sense, right? To see what the present value of this looks like.
Josh, do you have that model? You could
Can you just,
Put the
can you
cost-
plop in instead of 750 to 1?
No,
20-year money. I mean, it's probably not, it's 100.
Did you help Linda with the, I think the,
It's 750, but then I have an estimate on I got the additional amount I put in, I asked him for, it might have been 1.5 at the time. So in addition, when this came, so let's see what we have.
Yeah, I'd be curious. And obviously we also have, and it's a small delta, just the common charges that we had to pick up too.
Right,
It's, look, hopefully it's all great, right? But it's a little, the reality is a little different than it was put forth. It was put forth, this is an incredible building, the space is great, we should be able to do it for a reasonable amount of money. The reality is much different. I just think we should be able to do a postmortem. And I think that should inform us moving forward when we do this stuff.
Well, it-
You can't get too rosy in these.
Well, but
projections.
are you requesting that they come back with another plan?
No, I just want to know.
Just no.
I just want to
Okay.
know.
So the
No.
calculation of the PV value. of the
Okay, okay. I just want to make sure I'm clear as to what.
Yeah,
your
but I think we
question
should
is.
think long and hard going forward when we get in these situations to make sure that the contingencies and what we're looking at is what we end up.
actually, Michael actually helped Linda at the time with that projection. Michael, we can go back and work that up.
Yep.
I view it's still a bargain because in the long run, we own the building. We're paying ourselves. So
It's great. Let's just see it.
And we were able to monetize the ground lease through that whole transaction. I thought it was a brilliant transaction. I mean, this is not a great, add-on, but I bet the economics still stand up.
Well, the economics were always good on this. I mean, even, 15 years ago. Tiger, was the 750 original part of this, was that bid by the same contractors? Was that an estimate?
Estimate.
it was pulled out.
How did we arrive at the original 750?
It was kind of pulled out of the air.
Oh, was it? So we didn't have, well,
Okay,
all right.
The-
we'll just take a look and see
The
where we differ.
expectation was we wouldn't do as much demolition on the office side.
Mhm.
So.
I do have a question. Brian, I don't know if this is a possibility, but is there, if for other launch programs like this, I don't know how common it is to have the kitchen facility and all those other things. Like, is there some sort of granting that is available to something like that? Ever?
Not really. There aren't that many launch programs out like this. What we do is pretty unique to our students and our needs and, where we are. So I really don't think so. I mean, I know we're looking at it to see if there's any possibility, but on balance, it's not all that much of the whole project. I mean, it's certainly a piece, but it's not all that material as far as that cost goes compared to the overall. But we're taking a look at it to see, because it is specifically for special education students, and sometimes there is some funding available to help out to meet those students' needs. So if that's the case, we'll certainly let you know.
And is there might be some, I think we recall that there might have been a thought to maybe bring in some outside students from neighboring areas potentially as well, or is it
We've
just?
done that. We've done that before. Yep. And we would certainly, if there is a seat or two available and there's a need and it works out well in partnership with surrounding districts, we've had students come in on a tuition basis.
Right. I was going to say, then that's a revenue line item for you as well.
Can
for
be.
that. Yeah.
Mhm. Yep. And the same with the alternative program.
Mhm.
Okay, well, we'll, for our next meeting, we'll have, I think, the PV
Just
analysis.
curious,
Pardon me?
Just curious.
Yeah, it's obviously, no, it is good to know. And
Just to remind you too, though, the Board of Ed budget will pay back the bonds for 20 years.
Mhm.
The maintenance, which is whoever's in there is going to pay the maintenance for the space.
Their portion.
And then we're going to amortize this $1 million additional amount over 10 years. We'll bond it for 10 years.
Mhm.
So just like 39 Locust was paid off over 10 years.
Yeah, like 200,000. Yeah.
Yeah, so
any other questions then on this bond appropriation? Bob, anything? Oh, Colin?
No.
Michael?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, I want to make sure, Amy, you're good with approving this.
Yeah,
You just
no,
wanna
I'm
get
okay with
the-
it. I just want,
okay.
I just want us to,
Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I want us to be accurate and as we go forward.
Okay, okay, so motion to approve?
Do you want to read? the
Go ahead, why don't you read the
resolution?
resolution? Yes,
Doesn't
please.
matter
You
if
should,
want-
nope,
Okay.
you definitely should.
Resolution authorizing an appropriation of $1,359,000 for the 220 Elm Street 2023 project and the financing of said appropriation by the issuance of general obligation bonds, the town, and notes in anticipation of such bonds in an amount not to exceed $1,359,000.
All in favor?
Motion.
Yeah.
We didn't get.
Oh, I
a-
thought I'm sorry. I thought I
Second,
did.
second.
Yeah, so a motion?
second. She moved.
I thought
No, I
she just read
read
it.
it. Do you want me to?
she just read it.
Yeah,
So let's do I need to make a motion on this resolution.
So moved.
Tom is the motion second. Maria, okay. We got Maria, Michael, thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Okay, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for that. Okay. Now 28 Grove.
The Board of Selectmen approved this morning. And the town council will meet a special meeting on the 25th. Because we had to advertise the public hearing. The appropriation, which requires advertisement before they can vote, so.
Any discussion, questions? This is what we voted on in December. Everyone
no,
remembers?
we had an executive session. We didn't
Oh,
vote.
yeah, that's right.
As I described it this morning, this is a strategic
Discussed in
property.
December.
You know, we've been watching this property for several years. When the resident passed away, we're buying it from the estate. And we have a tenant in there currently. There is a tenant in there currently. If we're providing for $100,000 of potential renovations, we don't expect to spend much of that unless we decide to upgrade it so that rent could be doubled from what it currently is. You know, a house in New Canaan that can accommodate a family, people are willing to get their kids in school.
Does public ownership require any changes?
No, not at all.
It doesn't require ADA or anything
No,
like
no,
that?
No, it's not, if it's less than 4 units, it's not a public building.
It-
That purpose.
Single family homes are exempt
Yeah.
from the regulation.
Yeah, and also there is an alternative. People are interested in paying to park there. So we could, you know, look at whether parking is a better economic value for us to pay off the acquisition. And
So the amount in the proposed appropriation is the purchase consideration plus 100.
right.
I'd be more comfortable just with the purchase appropriation. And then if there's a game plan of renovations and we know what it is and for what purpose, come back for that. That's my view. But you know, it's, I just,
We have some must do's from the fire marshal. If we're gonna stay with the current renter and the current situation, we've got at least, from my estimation, around $40,000 of work that must do. We had to line the chimney flue, small things like, you know, smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. There's some painting that needs to be done, and some electrical work that needs to be done. Specifically that he's asked for, and replacing the oil tank as well. So got about $40,000. Then the thought is, do we want to replace the roof or not?
Roof is not.
And then we get into other items.
so is the goal here to have a house that we rent? Or is the goal here to have a strategic property that gives us opportunity. We just saw how we ended up with a number significantly different than we thought we would for this property acquisition. And so,
But this is a single family home. I mean,
Yeah.
there's only so much you can put into a single family home.
is there?
Well, it's occupiable now. It's being occupied by a renter. We, as a landlord, we want to be a little more. It was,
Well, we need to
it
be
was being operated by
compliant.
a state, right? We'd like to make it a little more upgraded. And if we want to spend more money, we could probably get increased rents. For example, if we did the bathrooms, but we have no plans to do that. So,
So is the 100,000 in
Struggle with
in this bond authorization?
yes, yeah.
Okay, so so that's one thing.
Have we,
Yeah, so the question might be, do we want to, so, okay.
Right,
what-
do
what's
we,
our obligation to the renters? For how long?
Well, the renter is on a month to month, paying $1,500 a month. If the house was fully up to par, you could probably get $3,500 a month, according to John Engel, who was a broker that brought the transaction. to
But-
us. So,
I went through all my notes from Avalon. I did a lot of heavy lifting here, and strategically it makes sense. And even when we had the review of the development there, the sort of the unanimous opinion of, I think, everybody who spoke, and certainly P and Z, was not to have an access totally in front of Carl Chevrolet if we were ever to develop that, because the traffic is already bad. It would be just horrendous. But this is a small exit. It's also on a bad street. It needs, I mean, I'm glad it's an exit at all if we ever do anything.
No, it's an
with
exit and entrance.
I get that, but it's narrow.
wide.
It's
well,
still
no,
narrow.
No, it's wide enough to be a two-way.
Well, it's all on a busy street, but I'm not opposed to the strategic element. I'm wondering if, are we better off charging and making that parking in the interim than all
Taking it
these
down.
manifestations?
We need to
Yeah.
do that analysis, and
Well,
there's
should we not
there's
do
a
that?
there's a prospective business party that would like to perhaps rent it as parking. That could be the better alternative, but we haven't
I
done.
think we really
haven't
need
done
to
that
look at
analysis
that
yet.
before we.
But I mean, if we're only getting $1,500 a month on a month-to-month rental, and what I'm hearing is to keep it as a operating home.
Right.
If you want to upgrade it, I think Target said 40 grand, like,
That's a must do from the fire marshal. There's not an upgrade. Those are things that he feels are necessary now that it's the town owns it.
sure.
Um,
But did you say 40,000 approximately?
approximately.
Yeah, I mean, we're only making 1,500 on it, and we're going to spend 40,000, and we're not sure what we're doing with this house.
Well, we're gonna rent it.
But do we? should
well,
we-
Really?
We're gonna rent it.
I would say this, like, when we say we don't know what we're doing, but perhaps that's true, but I think its principal value is sort of a strategic,
That's
theoretically
right.
defensive, right? In other words, to retain the value of the railroad yard, right? So that's all fine with me. I do think it's a fair question to say whether or not we gross up the purchase consideration by 40,000 or 100,000. That seems fair to me, right? If you need 40 on day one because the fire marshal says that's what you need to do, doesn't seem like there's any wiggle room there. But to say that we're going to just appropriate another 60,000, we don't really know what the plan is, if there is a plan, and I think that's probably fine. If there was a thought to put more money into that, it's probably not unfair to ask people to come back and describe what that plan is.
And then what the new rent would be.
Yeah, but if you're going to put 40,000 in to get 1,500,
Right.
you got a lot of months before you're break even on that.
Well,
one.
I'm not,
Oh, yeah,
proposing- I'm
yeah.
not proposing we keep it at 1,500. I'm saying we can relet it for more than that. If you want to get top dollar, you probably have to do the bathrooms.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so what does the 60,000 additional over the 40, what does that include? What is that? What's the other 60,000 for?
if we potentially did renovations of the bathrooms,
Come
Oh,
back.
so
Or
that
the
is the
roof.
bathrooms, that's to upmarket the rent.
the roof, what's the bid we got on the roof? 27,000?
Correct.
So,
I think what you're hearing is take this in two steps.
Yeah,
I think we all agree we have to do to be compliant with the fire request. That's a no-brainer. We're not going to have that as a risk. So I could see the added 40, but the 60 take off the table for now until there's a plan and come back.
Well, I wonder if, what
Hey, we'll
would
get
it
you-
cost to demolish the building?
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
that-
Just go straight to demolition and,
Exactly.
if it was going to be used for parking to demolish it, it probably would be $40,000 to demolish it. So
Right, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And we don't have any
So- so-
maintenance on that.
Should we not?
could I propose that we come back with a plan and
Yeah, perfect.
and
Sure.
we and authorize the 100. We're not going to bond it for
Mhm.
another year, probably by the time are we going to be at the market in March?
If it
Um,
was approved, it could.
but if we don't have to spend it, right? We'll come back and say, this is what we need to do. I don't quite understand honestly whether, if you own this house privately, you wouldn't go to the fire marshal. Fire marshal doesn't have jurisdiction over private residences, do they, Tiger?
No.
So I mean, it's just, he's recommending, having looked at the building, that we make it.
Are we in here?
Well, I don't think we want the liability of not making those improvements now that we're discussing them. you know.
Yeah, and we're,
Well,
it's town liability.
I'm
isn't
just saying. So these are kind of things, if you own the building as a private landlord, you wouldn't do them perhaps. We are going to do them because we
should.
don't want liability.
Yeah. I might make sure I understand what you're saying. We want to approve the authorization for the purchase, but hold the 100 off.
No.
totally?
Do the 100 and we won't only spend the $40,000. And if we decide at some point that we want to spend the additional amount, we'll come back to you. The author, where we have
Okay.
two
I
years
don't-
to.
I don't
years.
feel
Might be
comfortable with
better
that
just
personally.
doing,
I don't-
forward.
It's 26 months before we make it back, the $40,000 at $1,500. I mean,
But the
I'm not
day-
looking to kick
The
anybody out.
day
but-
we own it, we inherit the liability
Yeah.
associated with what we just heard.
Well,
How are we not going to pay for that?
Well, isn't the
Yes.
question
How are we
really,
gonna
how
use
are we
it?
going to use it? Like what makes most economic sense?
Exactly.
So that's really the question. And I mean, putting in a new oil tank, I mean, is the oil tank leaking? Is it not leaking?
Right.
Like, do you need a new roof if it's not leaking and you're only going to have it for 2 years? Let's
I
say.
mean, we could, the gas is in the road, we could convert it to gas. I'm not sure whether that makes sense, but the point is that.
But if we're
It
tearing
wouldn't if we're
down,
going to
why
tear
are
it
we
down at some
spending
point.
any
I
money?
mean,
That's another
Yeah.
analysis.
Okay, that's the point on the plan.
That's the
Yes.
analysis.
So I would just.
How old is this building?
105 years.
old.
But it's interesting. A little it was the transfer that just went through for a house on Summer Street, 1,000 square feet less for
Yeah.
$950,000. So,
Okay,
and the
so-
property, this property is 50% larger.
Mhm.
So in terms of comparables, that's what.
Yep.
And on the other hand, the renter now is paying $1,500 as is. With $40,000 improvement, I think we can probably get $2,500. They didn't go out and market the house as an improved house.
Yeah, but
as an
Yeah,
estate.
we're not doing this to be landlords.
No, no,
That's not
right.
why we're
Well, yeah,
doing this,
we
right?
need to make the most economic to cover the cost of the carry.
Well, aren't we doing it?
if
Aren't
we're
we doing, hang
carrying-
on, hang on.
Yeah.
Everybody, aren't we doing both? We're buying it for strategic reasons. We are a landlord. Now, if you're telling me we're going to close we're not going to have a tenant on day one, well, then we don't want to spend $5.
We don't want to spend.
Right.
But if we're going to have a tenant on day one, I don't see how we don't spend $40,000. You have to. We just had a conversation about chimney liners and fire.
We have a tenant in there now.
I get it, month to month.
Okay.
But in a
I'm
month,
saying-
are we going to have the tenant or not? And if we're going to have the tenant,
Yeah,
we
but I
can't
would-
not
I-
spend 40 grand on this.
So we've spent 40 grand and then the rent's going to be 2,500, not 1,500, right? You had an estate.
The rent
plan-
is the rent. You have
Yeah.
to come back with that. And I would say,
Gonna pay $1,000 more just because you've put in safety.
But because they have the benefit of a family with one child who go to school, they'll gladly pay $2,500. You can't find a house in Canaan. Rents.
Probably right.
The
Sounds
county
like
was
that,
running
but
it
that's
at
not-
1,500 move out.
We're not.
I think
paying for
it's
this.
we're talking against each other here. Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Do you need an appropriation to purchase it or not?
Yes.
Okay, so I just said,
So we
I just said, let's do it. And you said, no,
No,
Why don't-
you said just the
no.
acquisition and not do any improvements. We have to do some improvements.
Okay. What I would suggest is we approve the appropriation for the acquisition plus this $45,000 or $40,000 to make it compliant with what was given to us by the town on fire. I don't see, there's no choice. But I don't think we should approve $1 more until we know what the plan is and the rent. Are we going to keep it? Are we going to destroy it?
Okay, we'll come back.
So
with
let's
anything beyond
take
45.
that off the table. I
What the
don't,
revenue for parking would be, how many cars?
all that.
The
That's-
cost of tearing it down. I mean, those are just
We can
basic.
figure that out. That's easy. So this would be modified. This would be minus
Right.
60 grand. That's a suggestion. I'm just.
Yeah,
wanna
I
get-
agree with Todd entirely. I don't think we should be, the 100,000 was just pulled out of thin air, it seemed like to me. The 40,000 is appropriate. I agree, we can't take on a house and potential liability now that we're aware of it. So I believe we should reduce it by 60,000 from the proposal.
Okay.
But yeah, the crazy thing is, if we're gonna tear it down, we're just throwing 40,000
Yeah, we
away.
did.
Right.
That's right.
I
I'd love
mean,
to know
it's
that
really a
before
bit
we do any
complicated.
of it. This
Well,
can't
I
be
mean, if you don't want to spend the
postponed.
40,000,
You got to end the lease.
you terminate, right, you would terminate the lease.
Monday.
Right.
Then you got a house.
Yeah,
Right.
then you got a structure and you figure out what you
Yeah.
do with it, with
Yeah.
maybe a more
I'm
thoughtful
okay with
process.
I'd
I'm
be okay with that too.
I'm more okay with that.
Yeah, that'd be even.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think, yes, because you don't really want to rent it for 1,500, right? You really want to try to rent it for 25. So you terminate the lease.
Yeah.
Do the improvements.
Don't do anything.
Until there's a plan.
until
And
we
figure it
get-
out.
until
Yeah,
we
figure
get
it out.
And then we can, re-rent.
Working on renovation and renting, you're coming back with three proposals.
Then you rent it.
A, B, and C, and then we can decide a supplemental funding for the cost of A, B, or C.
Right.
So that's the alternative, Plan C, 954,
775.
775, no improvements until we have a plan.
Well, so the plan is to terminate
The lease.
That would imply we
Yes.
have to terminate the
Yeah.
lease.
Because now you're on public record.
I don't know
here
what kind of
that you-
public service we're doing by that.
Well,
That, we don't have any
because we
facts
don't
on
have-
that. but-
This can't be postponed 1 month, can it, till you have a more
have to make-
information on the plan?
Gotta
or-
close.
We have
Yeah,
to
you gotta
close by the
close the
30th or
deal.
All
so.
right, well, then we have to vote for it tonight. All right.
When does the lease up? You have to give them 30 days?
I imagine so.
Well, then you have no choice,
you
everybody. We
have-
have to pay $40,000 to get it compliant. Can you get it compliant in that short period of time, Tiger?
That's great.
We can't have a
Well-
town. We
Well,
just, I just cannot
It
approve.
doesn't make sense to have it sitting empty for 6 months. We have no money to do anything, so.
Well, I don't think it would be 6 months. So if you come back.
All right, so
Next month.
To get it,
No,
to get it
it's-
compliant.
Options,
You can get that.
we vote on one of the plans and then we proceed.
But safety is likely what, the chimney flue and.
The-
a couple of-
Right, it's
I mean,
a
outside.
chimney flue. I need to paint the inside, for an
Why do you
abatement,
need to paint the
no,
inside?
you don't.
Why do you have to
abatement purposes.
For what?
Abatement purposes. You gotta remember that this was the 1900 home, the existing paint.
Oh, do you have hazmat you have to do in there?
Jesus.
Not if I encapsulate. So
My God.
the abatement was done by the prior owner prior to sale.
Just help
But
me
if
with the mechanics of this. We approve this, do the purchase. We take ownership. They're still in there for 2 weeks. We could give them 30 days notice the day we,
Mhm.
right? I got that, but that's March 1st probably. How long does it take you to do the things you just do? And are you asking those people to move out while they abate the let?
Not very long. I don't even know if they might have to vacate for a short period of time. It's not gonna be long for the majority of work we could do while they're there, lining the chimney flue.
I think
they can
owning
do
this,
while they're there. I can do the electrical work while they're there. The painting might be somewhat disruptive.
I don't see, I
I
don't see
don't
a
think-
scenario where we can't spend 40, we can't do what he's talking about. How could we possibly put this town at risk like that? That seems ridiculous for $40,000.
When is the expected close?
Have to close by 30th.
The 30th. And if you gave them 30 days notice, they're getting there for a month and that all that liability is on us. You said
Oh,
wiring.
well, we're not gonna do the work until after the close.
We could ask the seller to give notice to the tenant.
Yeah.
It picks up a week.
And then push off the
Yeah.
closing 30 days.
Right.
And then when we take it over.
Maybe
it'll
that-
be
Yeah,
empty.
but we can't do,
Give notice
we
to the
can't do the work in there until we own the building.
That's right.
So
But
if
in
the
that we
closing's at
won't
the end
have
of the
to.
month,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Question is, are we doing the work? I
That's what I'm
mean, why
saying.
are we-
why even do the work? We
Right.
don't have the liability to the 30th. By then, the tenant is gone.
I know. No, the 30th of June is next week. You can't, that's not a month's notice. It's a week's notice.
We can't give
Week and a
notice.
half.
We can't give notice and they won't give notice.
Yeah, we can't.
until-
Why won't they
No,
give
no, no,
notice?
no. We won't own it
Hey.
until the 30th. We can give notice on the 30th or the 31st. They're there through February. There's a whole month at risk. Here's my point.
Why can't we do a delayed close?
Yeah.
Why can't we close it at the end of February?
Yeah.
Why-
Because
why
the
can't-
seller has alternative buyers.
Presumably we have a contract. I mean, it's.
Well, yeah,
it
but
more than 40
nobody's
grand?
against
It's less than
closing it,
40
I don't
grand. I
think.
just-
I'm not hearing that.
Right. I
All
mean,
right.
Normally you can push. I mean, again, I don't know what words on the page are probably important here. Normally you can push.
Yeah,
I know it's
normally.
probably not a
Yeah,
preferred.
it's usually like 30 days, right? It's best
Yeah.
efforts and it's a 30-day leeway you can push it to.
Again, this seller has alternative buyers. So this is.
Did they sign a contract?
They signed a contract. We signed a contract.
Right, so if you can push within the four corners of your contract, they may not be happy about it, but I'm not sure that they necessarily could resist.
Can I make a compromise
Oh,
for
Lord.
tonight? I think we approve the purchase price plus 40,000. And then up Tiger, first the selectmen, everyone has to sort out whether or not we need to spend it or not based on what you guys are talking about. I think that's fair. and it's 40,000. Why, we don't want to spend it, but on the other hand, there's safety is always in the budget. And if we're going to be in a situation where we're at risk, we have to be careful.
Yeah.
And we have to have the money available for that.
Well, your preference is to end the current tenant.
I don't think that's a tonight discussion. I don't have any data, any plans, any math. You get 3,000, 2,000. I don't know, whatever that all is. I think that's a conversation. We're going to be meeting 6 times in the next month, and we can certainly put this back on the agenda if you want. We got a whole, right? But tonight, I think we need to move on a resolution, and would be my suggestion to add the 40,000 just in case we have to do it and we can't, get out of it or delay it or all those sorts of things. We need to be hedged. We shouldn't have to come back here to ask for the money. That's a suggestion.
Thank you.
I would request if we do it, I would like to see the numbers, what we actually spend the money on.
Yeah,
I would
think
like,
that's
no,
fair.
I'd like, because we do it and we approve, and we never
Yeah.
look at it, I'd like to see what was spent.
We can certainly give you a breakdown, and then, and in the interim, we can look at the cost of demo and whether or not, and then converting it to a
Yeah.
parking lot. We have a little bit of time here where we can kind of see exactly what the other possible avenues are. But I think, Todd, I think you're on a good course.
And we're together again, February 7th. We can easily have 15 minutes on this to clean up whatever else we need to clean up on. Is everyone okay
And
with
if
that?
we could have, if we
So
could,
has this resolution been read in the minutes yet?
No,
Okay. Well, from a procedural, I think we need to read it in, and then we need to amend it.
that's right, we need to amend it.
okay, so
Yeah.
we'll read it in, and then I think if we're
Then you
in
have to have
agreement, we're taking.
You have to have a
motion, the motion will say.
But no motion's been made yet. You can
Just
just,
try to say it hasn't been read in the minutes.
the motion I know, so just reduce it by $60,000 and make the
Well,
motion.
I'm not sure we can do that without
It's on
making.
the
an
agenda.
amendment.
Is
Is that right?
I think it's,
Yeah, that
I
was
think we have to
something
I
vote on
think
the,
so, too.
and then we can amend the amount.
Yeah.
I
think-
know we're
I
safe,
think
unsafe
that's right.
territory there.
Pretty sure that's right.
Seems 2 steps, but it's at least clean.
I want to make 100% sure though, that I'm not approving the entire 100,000.
We're, at the end of the day, let me just try balloon this for everybody. We're approving 1,054,775. We're going to approve that. Then we're going to have a second motion to amend that amount and reduce it by $60,000 to take it to 994,775. That's what that was my compromise
Let's do
idea.
the Amendment while the original proposal is on the floor. I think you can amend it before you have the final vote.
You
So
know
I
what?
think what
I'm
you have to
not
do is read it
absolutely
in,
sure about
have a
that.
motion and a second. Then you open up for discussion. Somebody proposes an amendment, you then vote on the amendment, and then you vote on the amended
New amount.
resolution at the end. And that's how you do it. And you don't have to have two, you have 2 votes, but what the amendment is inside the final vote, as opposed to outside the final vote.
Well, I think you have to not move on it as is. In other words, reject it before you make the amendment. I don't know, maybe you need.
No
a-
motion
a
has been
quick
made
lit-
yet.
We haven't,
You can make whatever motion you want now.
Who's
No
the
motion.
parliamentarian?
Well, there's a difference between making a new motion and amending a motion. So,
I think we're okay to approve 994.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I think that's okay.
So make that motion.
That could be the motion.
so the motion is for 994.
Resolution authorizing an
We read
appropriation of
it in.
$994,775,000.
All
That,
right.
that is, and I think that would
I hope
be
that's
okay.
right. Yeah. In other
Right.
words, we're reading it amended.
Right.
Not as is and
That's
then
right.
amended.
We're gonna read it
reading as
amended at
amended number.
994,775.
Yeah.
It's a reduced amount.
That's
It's a
right.
reduced amount.
Yeah,
We've done that before.
I know we have. I
Okay.
just don't remember if it's rejected. All right.
So we
Okay.
need to, if you would read that resolution then with the new.
All right.
number, and then we'll have a motion to approve.
Resolution authorizing an appropriation of $994,775 for the purchase of 28 Grove Street 2023 project and the financing of said appropriation by the issuance of general obligation bonds, the town, and notes in anticipation of such bonds in the amount not to exceed $994,775.
Okay, motion to approve.
So moved.
Chris, second. Seriously, we don't have a second after all.
Oh,
the discussion?
all this, it's just, nobody's that comfortable.
Second?
I'll move. I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Oh,
Opposed? Abstentions?
It's unanimous.
Judy, did you vote?
No, I'm.
Well, you have three
thinking.
choices.
I'm gonna abstain.
I think I am.
Yes, no,
too.
abstain. Okay, so we have two abstentions.
All right.
Okay. Judy and Amy.
I'm not comfortable.
Nope.
Okay,
All right.
say again?
Okay.
Okay. Judy, could you read the roll, please? Vote.
Yeah. All right, Judy Neville, I'm abstaining. Tom Schulte,
Approved.
all right, Amy Carroll,
Abstain.
Todd Lavieri,
Approved.
all right, Michael Chin,
Approved.
Chris Labrie,
Approve.
Victor's not here, Maria Weingarten,
Approve.
Bob Hamel, oh, he's not,
Not voter.
yeah, Colm,
Approved.
approve. All right,
Thank you. Okay, on we move. Self-sustaining fund. Who's got this one?
But I have John Howe, I believe.
John's on?
Should be.
Yes, I'm here.
There it
What
is.
you have in front of you is the draft 24 budget. So it is a moving document right now, but what we did was see if taking out the park and rec, just the programs portion of it, not the administration, and the wedding portion, taking it out of the general fund and putting it into its own self-sustaining. And the reason for doing that is because we consistently have wait lists on programs. So it's restrictive to have the park and rec programs in, and the wedding in an operating budget that's restricted. So we wanted to prove out. So based on the budget submission that we got from both the wedding and self-sustaining, they are both functional to be able to move them out into their own fund on the first year. So the top portion is to say what the general funds would be left with, self-sustaining and the wedding breakout. The bottom is the proposed 24 budget as it stands right now. That's obviously, it's a working document. So what we're looking to do is to actually start the fund earlier than 24. This is to show you what 24 would look like, but to start the fund now so that when the spring programs come up, we don't run up against the budget problems that we had last year, that we can't open more programs and just continues to have wait lists. So we carved out strictly what was related. So anything that's building related, that where the program is, there's a small cost in there, but not anything major. The building stayed in the general fund. And self-sustaining, what they typically do down the road when there is money that can build up in these funds, whether you turn it back into the program for supplies, but you can also get to the point of reserves can be put back to the general fund to cover the administration costs as well. That's what a lot of other towns have done, that when they generate funds, it can cover a portion of the admin back in the general fund.
Is there a best practice on those alternatives?
That is, a lot of towns do this because of the problems, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, it seems to me that if there is some excess revenue, putting it back into the general fund and requiring them to come back if there is extra supplies, costs or whatever, that kind of imposes kind of a self-executing discipline. It keeps everybody well informed. We kind of understand where the program's going, and then the revenues are kind of finding their way back home, if you will. And so that feels pretty good to me, but like I said, if there's a best practice of, oh no, we keep it and we let them kind of dip into that stuff for supplies and stuff, I didn't want to jump and say that doesn't. make
What's your
sense.
proposal?
I would say the first year or two to let it see how it works
Yeah.
out. And
Yeah.
see how big they can build the program with
Have the mon-
adding more programs in, to see what that level would be. What are the needs on an ongoing basis? And then come up with definitely, I think we should be able to come up with an amount that every year we budget, that it's a transfer back to the general fund.
Okay,
Right.
I'm in agreement with Tom. I think for the first few years, walk before we run. That's a very good discipline mechanism to have that money come back. If it just keeps going into those buckets, next thing you know, you've got four new this and that, and some money's getting spent, and it's like, if that's the proposal,
Yeah,
that's just want to
to
understand it.
Make sure it's functioning as it is, and if there is reserves, they go back.
Yeah, okay.
But also to ask if we can start the fund earlier than July.
So what does that imply? How does that work?
Does it need seed money?
Basically, yeah. So if the thought was to put a revenue budget of 100 and an expense budget of 100 right now, so that if he has to open more, John has to open more basketball camps or whatever it is, he's got that money right away to start those camps, those additional
So we give him
camps.
100 grand seed money, and then as people sign up for camps, there's money that comes in and it
Right,
adds
because
up.
he's gonna run out of the funds than what he has right now. So
Mhm.
when he does it, he can just go directly to
Yeah.
that because it's already in place.
Mhm.
So he can start those programs.
And so then the new budget will be built this way, though.
Yes.
For
the new
everything.
Budget for 24,
Right.
if we
Okay.
carve it out. Right now, it's not carved out in the general.
Okay,
fund.
and is 100 enough for the rest of
But
this?
I would leave that to you if you feel for the spring program through the end of June, above and beyond.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, sorry, John. What do you?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What's-
150 would be the nice place. You know, one of the examples, we just did a father-daughter dance, a new program, and we had such 18 hours and it sold out. And we would have liked to have done a second seating that same night. And we just can't afford to because the revenues from that, even though a lot of its expenses, goes back to the town. So 150 would be really good to come into the spring for the programs.
I'd be fine with that.
Okay, so that's the request is to have the self-sustaining fund for $150,000 to
Yeah.
start.
Hey, Todd, I got a question. I just want to understand it. John, you and I have talked about this. You know, one of the things that I've been passionate about is lights for a Mead Park, which could be funded by, you know, charging membership or guest fees for pickleball. Is this something that if we give this fund that you could kind of put a plan in place for lights at Mead Park and sustain itself with costs for the membership or whatever, guests for pickleball at Mead Park? Is this something that would happen because of this? Because in the past, you've said there hasn't been funding for this. Would that solve that problem?
That would help solve that problem. We also put it in the capital budget, but that's not this coming year. We also, in our fee proposal that went through the Park and Rec Commission, we put in some fees for pickleball. So that it will help us with our reservations and out of towners using it without reservations and things like that. But yes, things like that. A lot of towns will set up these things and, you know, say of the profits, 10% would go to capital projects, 10% would go back to the general fund, and the other money would be reused, that type of thing. So, yes.
Yeah,
it
no,
could
that's
be.
great. No, that's great because there's a lot of public support for helping fund this as a public-private partnership, you know, ahead of time, so that if you have the self-sustaining fund, it could be paid back by the public as well through a public-private partnership to get
Correct.
started earlier. Okay, great. Thank you, John.
Just so I understand, and I'm fully supportive of this. So do we true up this at the end of a fiscal year? Do you true it up after a I mean, because the idea is you get 150, so John has another program that he can make 10,000 on, he has the money to do it. So is it just going to be kind of a truing up quarterly in terms of, you know, in terms of potential excess money where it goes? I mean, just in terms of the
We
program.
wouldn't typically do that. It would be.
Which
this
end of
would-
year?
So at the end of the year, you'd look to say if your programs were, John would have to see too,
Okay.
what programs were covering, what programs were not, and then see what your bottom line is. At the
All
end
right,
of it.
and that's fine. I'm just trying to understand
You'd
the
look At
process.
the end of the year to see what it is.
Yep.
Other questions? Clarifications?
Just a question on and then this wedding fund, is that also going to be broken out?
That'll be on it's by itself, so we'll be able to identify Park and Rec programs versus the wedding, so they'll be completely
Are you going to
separate.
do that as part of this,
Um,
what you're proposing tonight, or is this just an illustration for next year's budget, the way you're going to present?
I believe that there's a thought to do it now because they're starting with all the different marketing and everything they're doing within Waveney so that they can start.
How
the
much
program.
money are we putting into the wedding fund?
We've not really had a fee structure yet on because of the fact of she's built the budget. You can see from under the wedding, it's at 199. We're typically at 120. So there's an assumption money's coming in for that one. So we don't have a dollar amount per se. So if we said we want to start off with what am I trying? I'm not explaining it the right way. We don't have as much a need as we do for
Yeah.
the park and recs yet. If I'm saying.
You
it the
don't
right way.
incur the expense with the wedding until you book
Thank
it,
you.
That's right.
right?
Saying it
So,
right,
you know, you got to hire your coaches beforehand.
That's
So,
what it- So we want to get this fund up and running, but there isn't as much a need right now for it. But we definitely want to get it over at some point when we get a full analysis.
So we're just voting on this self-sustaining at this point, or
Yes,
nothing for the wedding?
yeah, they don't need it, right?
we don't need it right now.
Okay.
Not right.
All right.
But it's really two self-sustaining funds, self-sustaining recreation, self-sustaining wedding.
Wedding within the same.
Yeah,
one,
Right.
yeah.
it's-
Oh, yeah.
For the budget,
It's
for the
going
budget
into
for
it.
next year,
Yeah.
24, we would break it out as two self-sustaining funds or one
We have
self-sustaining.
one Self-sustaining
Which-
fund, but we'll have it broken out so
Broken out.
that, yeah,
Two-
it's
two.
identifiable.
Yeah, we should label it that way.
Yeah. okay.
Self-sustaining, a rec and self-sustaining wedding. Okay, that's it.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so motion to approve $150,000 to,
That's a transfer out of the existing
Yeah,
budget.
where's it come from?
No, it's not a transfer. You're literally just setting up a budget. We're setting up a new fund. So it's a brand new fund.
Funding.
where does the money come from?
The money is just it's not going to be a transfer out of any operating. You're asking for $100,000 in expense and $100,000 in revenues.
The money's got to come from somewhere.
Where does the revenue come, where does that money come from to?
The revenues are
funding?
going to come from John's programs. As he said, as people.
When you said 150,000 of seed money, what is that
Well,
then? Where does
actually,
that come
seed
from?
money's probably the wrong way to put it. It's more, you need the budget. You need
It's
the
a
budget.
capacity.
And that's got to come out of the general fund budget, which is
No,
already
no.
budgeted against.
So John's gonna have a program that's gonna bring in $20,000. He's gonna have everyone signing up for that program.
Mhm.
That revenue's coming in up front for that program, the 20,000. Which is gonna go under the 100,000 in the budget revenue, and he's gonna have an expense of 20,000. So I don't need that upfront money if,
The revenue pays for the expense.
exactly.
I got
That's-
that.
That's what, it's gonna flow through there.
So, and if he doesn't have the expense, he can't allow the additional players or
Right.
members or fee
Makes
payers,
sense.
Right.
right? So then
So there's
he
no
has, he
money
needs to
upfront.
have the expense to match the potential additional revenue.
So
He gets that up.
we're approving the revenue to go into the self-sustaining account.
Yes,
Okay,
we're setting up a budget to accept the revenue and the expense for that self-sustaining fund.
really, we're approving a fund.
But for
Yes.
24, you're going to budget an expense amount in the.
Sounds like
self-sustaining.
that's,
Revenue and expense.
this revenue that's in the budget will be budgeted to go there.
Yes, the
Okay.
revenue and expense that's currently on the top line here, that's going to move and go into the self-sustaining.
Okay, we're not moving any money, if I understand this. It's really literally to create this fund.
Right.
Creating a new fund, and that's where they start to operate out of.
Right, and the
Yes.
budget will be
excess.
up to 150
Up
to
150,
start,
sorry.
right?
Okay.
Which gives him $150,000 of room to allow additional players, additional teams, additional people to pay fees.
Exactly.
That's clear.
With the money
Okay,
coming.
all right.
All right, I think it's.
Now, we've
I
we've
think
done
that's
this
Make sure we're
fine,
back
yeah.
end for a couple of years, and this is just more forward looking. And I think will give John and his team a far more flexibility rather than trying to retrofit it sometime in the middle of February
Yeah,
when we have.
they can
other
provide
officials.
services.
Yeah, but
that are in
State
demand.
Bank will struggle with this because he
Yeah,
couldn't add
couldn't
programs
accept.
because he didn't have expense.
Right,
So,
right.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
But technically, if we're not sweeping it till the end of the year, it could be higher than 150.
It could, and then John would be able to come back based on the demand that he's seeing.
Yeah.
Right.
When
And we would
when
adjust
runs
that
out
in the
over
future.
here, he's got the
That's
150,
okay.
he'll know the
Yeah,
demand.
That's
that
okay.
makes sense.
Okay, good. Okay,
all right.
All right.
motion to approve the self-sustaining fund. Amy,
I would approve that.
second,
That's great.
Maria. See how fast that goes when you really want
Well,
to? All in favor? Aye.
clean.
Both done? Okay,
All right,
Yeah.
John, thank you.
John.
thanks.
Thank you.
So we have a couple of financial update items. We have the financial update, which I'd like you to walk through. An update on the status of the audit report and then the cash management follow-up from our December meeting. Do we have any line items to change, approve or transfer? Okay, so we'll hold off on that. Okay.
Just review, yeah.
Just review. Okay, we'll hold off on that. So do you want to start with the financial update? And then, Andrew, you want to come, you have to come up here and talk if you want to be part of the conversation. So come on. We'll do the financial update and then the cash management update. And Bob, I know Bob's on. Bob, I don't know if, when we get to cash management, I don't know if you had any thoughts you wanted to add to as well. So I know you.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
let's have Ann do her update first. Apparently there's a sidebar going on that we.
All right. So in front of you, you have the December financials. And that of course represents the 50% mark of the year. And starting at the top with the revenues, the overall revenue is just shy of 60%. Moving to tax collections, it's currently at a 62%, keeping pace pretty much with what we were at last year. Prior years tax collections though have gone up. They're 155% of what was budgeted, just due to tireless efforts of the tax collector. And I believe a tax bill that was collected for about 100,000 that was kind of outstanding. And we're at 220,000 over what was actuals for last year. Moving down to building permits and conveyance fees, they're at 48%, each of them, of what was budgeted for the year. And both
So
are,
this, it's funny, the way this reads, you'd say, oh, that's a negative variance compared to last year, but it looks like it's right on budget.
Yeah.
it
I mean,
is,
it's
yeah.
right what we, more or less. I mean,
Pretty
you
much.
have 48% versus 50.
Right,
so-
compared to last year, they're down
But we budgeted that.
325, 400,
Yeah,
right, but
yeah.
it was budgeted that way and
Good.
it kind of seems on par with that. Over to parking is at 52%. Permits are,
But parking's different, right? Because people prepay the parking, right?
so with, when it
So
comes,
being down, we're kind of down in parking
I
or
don't think
not?
so. I think
We
we're
don't?
actually to the good in parking. So right now, parking is, let me just take a look.
Sounds like a bet to me.
I'd make that bet, I think.
Yeah, and I'll back him.
So right now for parking permits, we're 380 out of 480 that was budgeted.
Okay,
And there's another 60 plus 65 coming in for business passes, if I understand it correctly, in June. So that should almost hit that mark at that point. In terms of,
and the rest of the parking is the paid parking.
right, so there are meters, and I would say in addition to what's in here, the number for meters is actually about 120,000 greater than what's listed here.
Okay, cool.
So that puts it closer to, closer to 60 some odd percent.
That's great.
Of where we are. So I would bet that parking is coming back slowly.
Woohoo.
Down to other revenue, it's currently, it shows as 25% of what was budgeted with a very big asterisk on it. The largest chunk of that is the operating transfer in, which is usually what's in there, as the 2.7 million, which was the bond premium from last year that we were reimbursing ourselves for the debt service, is just a transfer that needs to be made that just hasn't been made as of yet. So when that gets transferred in, then the other revenue is actually up to 70% of what was budgeted and pushes the overall revenue up 2% to 62%. So
Wow, okay.
that's really kind of cash in hand, just waiting for the transfer.
Okay.
And other than that, within other revenue, interest on investments is at 60% of what was budgeted, the 500K. So we're ahead of pace on that one.
How's
Good.
Andrew's doing? Okay.
Yeah.
Better than expected.
I guess so.
Are we bet-
10% better.
All right. Nice.
And
Actually, what is that number for interest income now in December?
you're asking for a real number, huh?
300,000? Out of the 5?
You're saying year to date?
More.
Year to date.
It was just shy of 500 when we met last month.
Yeah.
So we should be over the 500 mark now.
Okay. Okay.
And so any other questions on revenue? So down to expenses, the overall expenses are at 44% of what was budgeted, which is about 1% better off than the pace we were at last year. And I don't really have anything specific to highlight within those lines.
Okay.
But if you have any questions?
Okay. Anybody, any questions?
I'll just bring it up because it's legal, but legal's at 84% year to date. Is it just because we have transaction costs and things? Or
No,
FYI?
no, we actually,
PC.
one thing we realized is, we were on a trajectory before 830G arose we set the budget And we had for a couple of years at 250. It used to be 355 when I first took office, and
Got
we,
it.
with 830 Gs in the pipeline, we have to be budgeting more. So
Got it.
what have we budgeted for 24?
350.
350. So yeah, we just got too skinny on our budgeting.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
And the moratorium is in there too. Work on the moratorium.
Well, you're right. That's legal costs as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Having to do a plan that, we hadn't done in 5 years and that kind of stuff.
Any questions? Revenue expense? Okay. Okay, you want to, anything else, Ann?
No.
Do you have anything else you want to cover?
Good.
Awesome. Good update. Cash management. So follow-ups. I know, Bob, any thoughts, or Andrew, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's obvious that we're in a higher rate world that, Fed funds are 4.25. They were 0 a year ago at this time. And we're looking at least another 25 increase February 1. And the Fed's mantra is higher for longer. So, the town has a natural and considerable float where we take taxes in December and January and June and July and spend the money down through the year. In the 0% world that we've been in for the last 3 or 4 years, it really didn't matter what we do with our cash, but now it's, an opportunity to generate rather considerable revenue. And Andrew has been working tirelessly with Ann and her team to come up with a plan to be more efficient in moving money to earn interest and then, bring it back as we spend it. So, we've got relationships at Webster. That's our prime bank. If you recall, we were going to move to JP Morgan, but they weren't able to sort of accommodate our technical needs. But Bankwell frankly pays a better rate. So we've been working that angle. But I'll really turn it over to Andrew because he has been, working hard on this and has the particulars. But, we're looking at a nice line item to the good, thanks to higher rates.
Yeah, come June. Okay. Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah, so some good news that I learned very recently, through a lot of ongoing negotiations with our different banking partners trying to leverage rates that we're getting from one with another. We actually did just secure a rate increase with Webster. And now they are going to match the rate that we are getting
Nice
from
job.
Bankwell.
Good.
Which
4.1?
4.1%.
Oh my goodness.
It was 2.08 last week, so they almost doubled it.
Nice job.
And we've been pushing hard for that for a while now. The thing is,
What's the question?
How long? If they just, and the 4.1, is it?
it just got applied yesterday.
Okay, and it's just
6 months, 6 months.
6
term?
months. I mean, how long's the
It
term?
No, they can take it.
It's for a money market, so it's a floating
Oh,
rate.
it's close. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed rate, but given where the Fed is heading,
What-
their terminal rates
Bob
gonna be
just
4
said.
or 5. So
Yeah.
there will be opportunity for even higher rates in the future. And again, this
yield curve
is for
stays
operating
inverted.
cash, so we
Yeah.
That's
we don't
huge.
want to lock it up too long.
Mhm.
We did
Huge.
just invest today 10 million in 3-month treasuries as well to get as close to 4.6%. I think it came in at 4.57%. And that's for 3-month term because again,
You need
we're
to
going to
know.
be drawing that down in late April, May, June
Exciting.
before the next tax collection happens in July. But we do have longer term investments as well from fund balance from prior years. And so we've got about 5 million in 6-month treasuries that I invested 6 months ago coming due. So I'll be able to get in at an even better rate than was available 6 months ago. So largely I've been just looking at opportunities to maximize the yield while keeping the funds safe. The Bankwell opportunity we've been using, it's actually through IntraFi network. And it's actually a collection of 2,000 community banks around the country. They're all FDIC member banks. And the way it works is we deposit our funds with Bankwell. They're our relationship bank to this network. And then they put in $250,000 increments or less in other accounts at these other destination banks so that you're able to get full FDIC insurance. And it's also like a money market. So if we ever needed to draw that down at any time, you submit a form, the money arrives into Bankwell's account the next day, and then it can be wired back to Webster or wherever we need it
Cool.
to go. So we have a lot of flexibility. Now, that's the thing with Webster, with this new development is it's fully collateralized just in our money market account. And that is where we typically pool the tax collections that come in
Okay.
year over year. I have an outstanding request for them to give me information about how they are collateralizing. It's my understanding that they do not pledge the collateral in New Canaan's name. And when you go through the comprehensive annual financial statement, the auditors look at whether there's custodial credit risk. And there is still some risk when they don't pledge it in your name, although they do claim to 100% collateralize any dollar amounts that we have in our Webster money market account. So I just say that to say that it doesn't mean that we shouldn't move some money to Bankwell, again, just so that we aren't overly concentrated in any one institution, especially as we enter potential recession. Although if you looked at the stock market today, bank stocks did very well, by and large, but I think we do need to keep that in mind. But at least it's great that now, without doing much work, we're going to be able to realize that 4.1%.
And that checks.
Better.
Someone's breathing into their mic. I don't know.
The only other
Just on
thing
that one last thing.
Yeah.
That really helps. Is it Josh, who's doing that?
I promise it's not me.
I'm not taking it.
It's Kevin.
But I just want to be clear on your liquidity needs. That sounds like a major step forward in terms of your sleeping at night and making sure you've got covered. Yeah, that's great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So that's why today we moved money to Janney, but I didn't move it yet to Webster because now that we're getting the same rate, really it's just that safety component. And it kind of goes back to the cash management plan. So after last meeting, we talked about putting a plan on paper, right? Because I had a lot of it up here. And I am making calls and meeting with our investment managers at these other institutions, at Janney, at UBS. But what I put together was a 12-step plan. It was 14 steps, so I reduced. I know 12-step plan, right? It's a good number. And what I did here was I first identified what are our objectives that we're looking to achieve. And by and large, we're looking to maximize the safety of our cash, as well as the liquidity and the yield, right? Those are the three main components. And so as we think about that, I came up with 12 steps. We've already assigned due dates for end of February for 5 of the 12. And so Todd, myself, and Bob, who's been a great sounding board for a lot of these ideas, and Kevin met and went through the plan. We're going to, we're starting to work with those initial 5 steps. So the idea of moving the cash as we're receiving it into these higher interest accounts or into treasuries, that's really step 1. That's the basic stuff to get us to a 1.3, ideally, $1 million income, interest income for this fiscal year. And we are well on our way towards that goal, especially with these higher rates now, because remember, for the past 6 months, we've been in the middle of the Fed rate hike. So we haven't been getting 4.1% for the last 6 months. We've been able to earn a little over 500,000 on far less than that. So my projections get us to around 1.3. And obviously if rates continue to go up, we should get even higher. So we should more than double the revenue projection or budget for fiscal 23.
So that's what it was, 500 or 600?
I think it was 500 for this year, right?
So
Outstanding.
So now again, as rates go up, the value of the bonds, the unrealized value will drop, right? But I want folks to be clear that we haven't lost a single dollar in any of our investments because we have a buy and hold strategy. We never sell midstream. That's why I don't buy too many bonds and then leave in with no money to pay bills, right? So I make sure that we hold them through maturity. So we're getting our entire principal back plus any interest. And then Ann's been doing a bit of work. I know you'd put together that spreadsheet for us internally to look at, just figuring out where to get some additional funds into higher yielding accounts like the sewer fund, the grant fund. And there are certain pockets of dollars where we don't necessarily spend it down right away in some of these enterprise funds. So there is opportunity to earn some yield, although that yield will have to stay dedicated to those funds.
So we've proved that we can invest it. We can make, well, now you have Webster, you can send there, you can make.
Right, we can just trade a money market
And
account.
whatever that income can offset expense in that
Yes, in
fund.
that fund.
That's it. That's
Right.
great. That's
Right.
terrific. Good.
So now we can start to create those accounts where
Good
the
job.
checking accounts for those funds are, just to keep
Excellent.
it simple and easy. So anyway, I don't know, Bob, if you have anything else to add, but
Bob,
that's just
anything
a high-
else? It sounds like it came together. I mean,
No, we've got a lot, you know, I mean, there's some other, you know, niceties that we can shoot for down the road in terms of stretching payables and et cetera, but we want to be a good, you know, a good payer too. I know Kevin likes to pay his bills on time, and that's a good thing. But, you know, we don't want to, you know, we don't want to let the great be the enemy of the good. So no, I think we're on a good path, and, you know, it's great to be a creditor instead of a debtor.
well, look, it was nice. We wanted to walk before we can run. You got that. I think
Yeah.
we safely put a decent amount of money in. You're gonna earn $1 million, almost more than we had budgeted, which was well done, because we could have squandered this time had we not gotten going. I kudos to all of you for doing that. Thanks, Ann. Thank you
Sure.
very much, Andrew and Bob, of course. Any other questions on this?
No, great news.
Nice.
Yeah,
Good
no,
news.
it's, yeah.
Well
much
done.
better.
Thank you.
And you can sleep at night. That's my biggest concern. Okay. Anything else on that one?
No, I mean,
Okay.
the only other thing I was just going to mention is I'd done that analysis. We talked in our meeting, looking at our tax collections over the last 4 fiscal years, just to sort of game out what the next 6 months looks like, so we can
Mhm.
finish this
Mhm.
fiscal year really strong. And we do typically collect around 44 million in January. We've gotten, I think, a little under a third of that so far, but a lot of that comes in right before
Next week.
the tax deadline next week and the next 2 weeks. So as more money comes in, if there's opportunity to invest in, you know, in treasuries going out a little bit longer, we can. But again, we're trying to be conservative, like you
Yep,
said, walk
yep,
before we run.
Earning
So,
4%, there's no shame in earning 4%. Why chase 4.3
Right.
and cause a problem? I
Right,
mean, you know, you
right.
got it. You nailed it. Excellent. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thanks, Andrew.
Sure.
Audit update?
So with the audit, the typical schedule is normally around October.
Just one thing. I think you need to speak into a mic, because I'm not sure anybody online can hear you. Just so, yeah, there you go.
Josh, are we even
Thanks,
on-
Josh.
Are we online? Did they get
Yeah.
us back on?
I don't know
Okay,
about
good.
that, but still.
Oh, good.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. So typically the audit schedule is around October when they start winding up all the books and turning it over. As you know, you have to wait till the end of August anyway, because we need the Board of Ed to close, and they don't close until August based on their rules, state statutes. This year was a little bit different, and I will say it was a little bit more challenging. With me coming in, within 9 months, we lost the CFO, the controller, the senior accountant, and the staff accountant. So out of 6, we lost a turnover 4 in 9 months. So it was difficult to keep on top of all that work, on top of everyone figuring out what is the work and where is it and how do we clean it up. So we had that was one of the first problems that we had. It was actually good and bad in some cases, because it's good because it forces you to get into the weeds to figure out what everything is and figure it all out. So it was a good process there. We do have a very manual process that we are working towards. We're just getting the work done now, and then when we come up for air, we will start working out a better process to get away from the manual work. Couple of other issues we had, our financial system was sunsetting the end of 2022. So we had to work in a financial upgrade on top of it. It was like, I think 5 versions back. So we had upgrades there. Unfortunately, our fixed assets had to be recreated. That was a little bit of a difficult process. If you don't know the background, it was handled by a third party, I think about 2-3 years ago. It was a third party. It was brought in-house. So you brought it into a new system, and in the new system, it had to be completely recreated. Josh, I will have to say, was the rock star in that. He completely recreated everything, got into the system, knew how everything worked, and got it working really, really well. So now we're going to, on top of that, we also have to build in the leases into now a fixed asset system. So those leases have to be calculated out with the amortization. We got that done. So that's coming into play as well. On top of the pool had its own fixed assets. We just got that resolved just before the holidays, or between the holidays. And also in just basically, I was going through every single fund, all the balance sheets, to see what was on the balance sheets, because if I know the balance sheets are good, then I know everything else is in a good shape. So there was a lot of things that we really got into, and the team I have now they're excellent. Going forward, we'll be in a really, really good shape, formal monthly closings, things like that. So from the audit perspective right now, we did file an extension. We're gonna, I'm asking the auditors this week for their final list of questions because it's a back and forth all the time. They pretty much have most of the documents. As soon as they get them, we turn them around. So now it's what other questions do you have? Once we can solidify that, then we can get a draft MD&A.
Okay.
But because now we have to put it in front of the audit committee before it goes in front of any of these committees, we'll probably file a second extension because it needs to go into your next meeting, which is February. So the audit committee wants to see it 10 days before your meetings, 7 to 10 days before.
Okay. Well,
So-
which meeting? Obviously, we have several, so I think you can pick and choose.
We probably could.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
okay.
just want to make sure that the audit committee is fine with the
absolutely,
final
yeah,
document,
yep.
and then we'll turn it over to everyone. I'll feel very comfortable knowing that the numbers that are in there are really good. And I'll be comfortable signing off in the fact that I'm saying, yes, it's because I've gone through all the funds, and it was, I have to say, it was very challenging. But my whole team, the new team, and we, you know, Josh, and we have a couple of people that are still, not Josh, a couple of people that are new that came in, and they're just all jumping in. So I'm really excited going forward to once we get it all organized. And they're on board with anything and
Okay.
making the changes.
So to finish, you don't need any extra help or resources. It wouldn't now, sounds like, benefit anybody from bringing another person in to help.
Not right now.
Okay.
I will have to give credit to Kevin and HR for helping me too. They did get a temp earlier on
Okay.
when I had no accountants, basically.
Okay.
So I got a temp in to help with the basically manually keying in journal entries.
Okay.
And they now have somebody that comes in 3 days a week. Because just to give you some sort of, I have a person that is training the 2 new people. That person is not getting trained in their position because they got a promotion. So I'm myself and the comptroller are kind of doing that work to support that person. So now we got 2 people trained, we're getting this person. So we're getting to a really good place with having that extra person 3 days a week.
Well, as I've said before, I'll say it again. We care about it being right, not fast. No, we're never going to remember what day we got it. We'll always remember if it was wrong. So just what you're doing has been great. And I know it's been a tough slog and lots of new people, but also just a lot of other cleanup things and things you had to do and change, plus the system and everything else. To be honest with you, 30, 60 days is, you know, I know it's a little stressful, of course, but you know, we understand.
Yeah, and I never, there's no reason for us not to be in that position, to be in that position again, unless you have 4 more people quit, but we'll get into it much better so that in October, we're turning it over.
Okay. Questions for Ann? Thank you very much, by the way. I
Thanks.
appreciate the hard work and I
yeah,
know
it's a
weekends
lot.
and
Well, it's get there, but I truly have to say, I do have a great team. I'm really, really excited. for the
Excellent.
People we have in finance.
Okay. Bob, anything? Call them online. Michael? Any questions? Our resident CPA, any questions?
Yeah. She's like, I don't want to.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Ann. So,
No,
last-
great job. No comments. Just great job is all I'm gonna say.
yeah,
Thank you.
Michael. Okay, and then what items do we have to review? Anything, any, discussion? You want to just walk through them or you want to?
Sure, if you want. $10,071.65 just of transfers.
Ins and outs. Anybody have any questions on the,
No,
Chris?
I
No?
looked at them. They were fine, I think.
All right. 9:22, not our best, but not bad. Any other items? James, you good? Good one? All right, we will get a budget from you at some point, and the fun will begin in early February, and
It's always fun.
it's always fun.
It's a delight.
It is. A motion to adjourn, please. What's the best we
Motion.
get this? Okay, Maria, second. Nobody wants it?
Amy, you got a second.
Amy, second. All in
You
favor
can
of
write that
adjourning?
down as
Aye.
the best thing you did all day.
Opposed, Nick. Tiger, are you available tomorrow? I have a follow-up question for you on one of our items. So
Yes,
we don't have to solve it now. We'll figure out how to catch up.
yeah, we'll make time.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
You.
Good night, thank you.